peace be upon you, and may this message reach the part of your heart that's been quietly wrestling with truth. You didn't click on this video by accident. You're here because something inside you, maybe even something you can't name, is tired of living in survival mode. You're beginning to feel the pressure of a divine push, one that demands you to let go of what you thought you needed in order to step into who you were born to be. Let's start with a confronting question. What if everything you're refusing to release is the exact thing blocking your breakthrough? Let that sit for a moment. Because here's a truth nobody wants to say out loud. When Allah chooses someone, He doesn't just bless them with favor. He strips them of everything false. That includes people. That includes plans. That even includes parts of yourself you once loved. Why? Because the version of you He's trying to raise cannot carry the baggage of who you used to be. Chosen ones are not made in comfort. They are made in conflict. The kind of inner conflict that tears down false identities built on survival, trauma, attention, and ego. And if you've been feeling like everything you depend on is slowly being removed, you're not being punished. You're being purified. But it feels like punishment, doesn't it? When the thing you loved most is removed. When the relationship you clung to suddenly disappears. When your opportunities start drying up. When silence replaces the voices you once thought you needed to feel whole. And suddenly, you're left standing in front of a mirror you didn't ask for, facing a version of you that feels unfamiliar and vulnerable. This is the cost of being chosen. You prayed for elevation, but you didn't know it would come wrapped in separation. Here's something nobody tells you in those motivational reels. When Allah wants to prepare you for something greater, He doesn't start by adding to your life. He begins by subtracting. Because subtraction exposes your real foundation. It shows you what you truly worship, what you truly fear, what you've secretly been negotiating with. And if you're honest, there are things in your life right now that you're terrified to lose. Not because they're healthy, but because they've become part of your identity. You've convinced yourself you can't live without them. And that's exactly why Allah might be asking you to. This journey of being chosen is not romantic. It's raw. It hurts. It will stretch your soul in directions you didn't sign up for. But it's not meant to destroy you. It's meant to reveal you. The version of you that can carry the weight of your calling without collapsing. The truth is, not everyone will understand this process. Some will think you're losing your mind. Others will think you're being punished. But only you and Allah know the private tears you've cried while whispering, "Take what you must. Just don't take your presence from me." So let me ask you something that only you can answer honestly. If Allah asked you to walk away from it, that dream, that person, that status, that plan, would you actually do it? Or would you just nod with your lips and hold tighter with your heart? That's where your test lives. Not in the thing itself, but in your willingness to give it up. And if that question shakes you, don't look away. It means you're being refined. It means the process has already begun. There's something you need to understand right now. Dependence is not always loud. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, dressed up as responsibility, ambition, or even love. You tell yourself, "I need this to survive." But deep down, you've made peace with spiritual slavery. And the chains, they're golden, comfortable, familiar, maybe even smiling back at you. Some of the heaviest chains we carry are the ones we've convinced ourselves are blessings. We attach to people who give us just enough to feel seen, but never enough to feel whole. We chase after titles, careers, and validation, hoping they'll finally silence the ache we've buried under our busy schedules. We hold on to habits, routines, and environments that drain us, not because they serve us, but because we've built our identity around them. That's where it starts, quietly, almost invisibly. One compromise here, one emotional attachment there. And before you know it, you're praying with your lips, while your heart is bowed to something entirely different. The irony? You're asking God for peace while clinging to the chaos that's destroying it. Let's be honest. How many times have you asked for clarity while ignoring the obvious signs that something in your life is misaligned? How many times has a door slammed shut and your first instinct was to kick it open again? Not everything that hurts is an attack. Some pain is a promotion in disguise. And some losses are rescues. Here's a thought that might sting a little. Maybe the thing that's hurting you isn't just hurting you. Maybe it's also standing in the way of what Allah wants to give you next. And He loves you too much to let you miss it. But here's the problem. You can't step into a new season while dragging the old one behind you. You can't receive what's ahead when your arms are full of what expired. And I know. You've told yourself, if I just try harder, if I just wait longer, maybe it will work. But chosen ones aren't called to force doors. They're called to trust the one who opens and closes them. Now here's something that might shock you. The danger isn't in losing what you love. The real danger is in becoming emotionally loyal to something that no longer serves your soul. Or worse, something Allah has already removed His barakah from. Let that sink in. You can't afford to let your peace be decided by something that isn't rooted in the eternal. Because once it crumbles, and it always does, you'll fall with it. And when Allah chooses you, He wants you grounded in something that can never be taken from you. Him. So when He begins the process of detaching your heart from what it clings to, it's not cruelty. It's compassion. It's correction. It's a reminder. You are not meant to worship anything that can leave, fade, or fail. Sometimes, God has to allow the very thing you idolize to disappoint you so you can finally recognize its weakness. The moment when it doesn't respond the way you need it to. When it breaks your heart. When it disappears without warning. That's the moment you see what it really was. Temporary. And here's a hard but necessary truth. Some people and things in your life were never assigned to your future. They were only there to serve a lesson. And when their time is up, their presence becomes poison. The longer you hold on, the more it hurts. So ask yourself, what in your life have you made a non-negotiable? That was only ever meant to be temporary. Because when Allah starts touching the untouchable parts of your heart, it's a sign. He's preparing you for something that only the empty-handed can carry. And remember, He never asks you to release anything without having something better in mind. The question is, can you trust Him enough to let go before you see it? When Allah decides to choose you, He doesn't start by rearranging your outer world. He starts by rearranging your inner world. And most people miss this transition because they're too focused on what's changing around them to notice what's being rebuilt inside them. But you can always feel it. And that subtle friction between where you are and where your soul is being called to go. It's a quiet unrest, a sacred discomfort. You look around and nothing feels as safe as it used to. Nothing seems to satisfy the way it once did. Even the places and people that once brought you comfort start to feel foreign. You find yourself wondering if something's wrong with you. You pray. But the stillness that follows doesn't always come with clear answers. What's actually happening is that Allah is beginning the transition, and transition rarely feels like progress. It feels like falling apart. This is the part nobody prepares you for. The space between who you were and who you're becoming. The in-between, where all the familiar anchors are lifted and you have to navigate the waters of change with nothing but trust. You're not the person you used to be, but you're not yet the person you're becoming either. And the longer you try to force the old life to fit your new calling, the more everything feels misaligned. You can't pray the same way you used to. You can't show up the same way. You can't keep pretending that everything is fine when your soul is clearly signaling that it's time to grow. And growth, for the chosen, is rarely a gentle process. It often begins with a break. Not a breakdown of your worth, but a breaking of what is false. The illusions, the attachments, the lies you believed about yourself, the roles you played to survive. All of it starts to crumble. Not because Allah wants to hurt you, but because He's stripping away the layers that were never part of the real you. You can't wear a mask in a room where Allah is calling you to be authentic. You can't carry fake confidence into a battlefield where your faith is the only shield. That's why everything starts to feel like a test, because it is. You're being tested, not in the sense of punishment, but in the sense of preparation. The circumstances that are pressing on you now are not random. They are precisely designed to reveal what needs to be refined. Every delay, every closed door, every emotional tug, every painful goodbye, it's all happening under divine instruction. And the faster you stop fighting it and start asking what Allah wants to show you, the faster your soul will begin to understand that this is not destruction, it's direction. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you finally recognized that what once served you no longer belongs where you're going. And yes, there will be grief. There will be days where you'll question if you made the right decision. There will be nights where you'll sit in silence, wondering if anything will ever feel stable again. But in that silence, there is something sacred. That is where faith is formed, not in the noise of success, but in the quiet of surrender. When you're chosen, you don't get to carry dead weight into destiny. You don't get to bring every comfort into the battlefield. You're called to trust, to walk even when the road looks unfamiliar, to believe even when what you lost is still fresh in your chest. And yes, to obey even when it feels like your heart is being asked to do the impossible. And right now, you're standing in that place, the line between who you were and who Allah is calling you to become. Don't be surprised if things start shaking. Don't be afraid if what once felt certain begins to fall apart. You're not being buried. You're being planted. And soon you'll understand why this kind of loss was necessary. Not to take something from you, but to make room for something greater to arrive. There is a silent moment in every chosen one's journey where everything slows down, not because life has paused, but because the soul has finally started asking the real questions. These are not the kind of questions you ask out loud to others. These are the ones you whisper to yourself when no one is watching. Do I really need this? Do I truly love it? Or have I just been afraid of who I am without it? Those questions are not easy to face because the answers often expose how tightly we've wrapped our identity around things that were never meant to define us in the first place. It's not always a major sin that keeps someone stuck. Sometimes it's the subtle things. A lifestyle you keep up just to meet expectations. A circle of friends whose values you've outgrown but whose approval you still crave. A dream you once believed in so much that now letting it go feels like letting go of yourself. But here's the truth that your soul already knows. Not everything that starts with you is meant to stay with you. And when you're called to higher ground, the air will get thinner. The climb will get lonelier. And your baggage, emotional, spiritual, and mental, will be the first thing Allah starts to remove from your hands. You may find yourself in a season of life where what used to fit no longer feels right. You'll attend gatherings that once excited you, but now leave you feeling empty. You'll revisit old goals and wonder why they no longer move your spirit. That's not confusion, that's evolution. The more your heart turns toward truth, the less room it has for what is false. And yes, it's disorienting. Because what do you do when what once gave you joy no longer brings peace? What do you do when the habits you once leaned on become spiritual noise that drowns out your inner stillness? Most people stay stuck right there, They feel the discomfort but run back to what's familiar. They sense the call to let go but delay it until tomorrow, next week, next year. They convince themselves they are not ready. But that's not really the problem. The real issue is fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of being stripped. Fear of the void that follows obedience. Because deep down, they know. If they truly give it up, they can't go back. And that's what scares them more than anything. But chosen ones don't belong to fear. They belong to faith. They don't cling to things because they're afraid to be empty. They let go because they know emptiness in the hands of Allah is safer than fullness outside of His will. And yes, it will be costly. You might lose relationships. You might lose status. You might even lose versions of yourself you spent years building. But in return, you gain clarity, direction, integrity, and most importantly, peace that doesn't depend on anyone's validation. This is where the real transformation begins. Not in public announcements or grand spiritual awakenings, but in the quiet decisions you make when no one is looking. The decision to unfollow the path that everyone else says is success because your soul knows it's a distraction. The decision to walk away from someone who gives you butterflies but poisons your purpose. The decision to turn down an opportunity that would boost your image but bruise your sincerity. These are the sacrifices no one applauds, but Allah sees them all. And He honors them in ways this world could never match. Now here's the question only you can answer. What is that one thing, or maybe several things, that you know you need to let go of, but you're still bargaining with God to keep? You know exactly what it is. It rises in your chest every time you hear truth. It pulls at your conscience every time you close your eyes at night. You've made excuses. You've begged for signs. But maybe the real sign is that it still has such a grip on you. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you're finally choosing who you serve. And if that means walking away from what looks like everything, just remember, some of the greatest gains in life begin with the courage to lose what you thought you couldn't live without. But here's the truth. No one tells you at the beginning of this journey. Letting go won't just feel like sacrifice. It will feel like death. Death to everything you once leaned on. Death to the things you once called your source, your security, your identity. And what a terrifying death it is. To part with the very things you thought defined your worth. But this is precisely where divine life begins. When Allah strips you of what you thought you needed most, it's not because He wants you to suffer. It's because He wants you to see what He's about to rebuild. You'll look around one day and realize that what you called loss was actually divine subtraction, removing what was blocking your access to true provision. The things you cried over were not meant to sustain you. They were distractions dressed in comfort. Allah does not ask you to release anything unless He intends to replace it with something greater, purer, and more eternal. And here's where the deeper transformation takes place. The day you stop chasing what used to validate you and start standing in the value He already wrote into your soul. You'll feel lighter, not because life becomes easier, but because your heart no longer carries the weight of trying to preserve things that were never meant to stay. Every door that closed behind you was not a punishment, it was mercy. Mercy in disguise, mercy with purpose, mercy that cut deep so the healing could reach deeper. And perhaps the hardest thing to accept in all of this is that some of the people you loved most, some of the dreams you once cherished, are no longer a part of your divine journey. Not because they were evil, but because they were temporary. Allah knows that you can't walk into what's eternal while dragging along what was only meant to be seasonal. You'll see that clearly one day. when the fog lifts and the wisdom settles. That's when you'll stop asking, why did this have to end? And start saying, Alhamdulillah, it did. That's when you'll see that nothing you lost was random. It was all part of a divine design that had to break your heart open wide enough for His light to fully enter. And this is where your heart begins to whisper something sacred, that you're not missing anything anymore. You're not lacking. You're not waiting for someone to complete you. Because now you realize, Allah was not trying to take something from you. He was returning you to yourself, to the version of you that isn't diluted by attachments, opinions, or worldly measures, to the version that was always meant to walk boldly in His decree, not in the approval of others. This is where peace will finally find you, not when everything around you is calm, but when everything within you is surrendered. You'll breathe without fear, you'll walk without clinging, you'll rise without apology, and when people ask how you made it through that loss, that heartbreak, that shift, you'll just smile and say, because I stopped holding on to what I thought I needed and started holding on to the one I truly need. And now, dear soul, as promised, let us end with a heartfelt prayer, one not just spoken with the lips, but with the core of our being. May the Most Merciful grant you the courage to release what no longer aligns with His purpose for you. May He replace every loss with a gain rooted in truth. May He fill the empty spaces with peace and make you firm in your next steps. May you no longer beg to keep what keeps you from Him. And may every part of your journey lead you closer to His light, His mercy, and His eternal promise. Ameen.